Hello, and a very, very warm welcome to everybody. Here's presenting to you the Roundtable series with Reading Right. And I'm very excited to bring all of you to this wonderful series session that we've curated for a wide variety of stakeholders from the education sector. Obviously, because it's coming from an education technology company, Reading Right. I am Shrishti Jain, the founder CEO of Reading Right, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what our organization does and why we have such a unique series put together for all of you to engage with. Reading Right is an edtech startup that is actually determined to make sure that explanatory education is brought forth into the systems of education that exist. Explanatory education is a very, very novel term, but yet it is something which has been the need of the hour since eternity. The whole idea that goes behind having something like an explanatory education is just to make sure that any student gets help right where they actually seek it. They're explained every word, every line, every concept, just and when they actually require that hand holding and explanation. So, what we have devised is a system that enables teachers from various walks of education to select any word, concept, or line and insert the inherent meaning contextualized to the context there itself. What they do thereafter is also attach certain images, certain video links, and even their own voiceovers to make it even more personalized and related to the context. So every student could now, with just a very simple click of the word that has been highlighted, unveil the underlying text, video, or image thereat. All of this can be made available on our webpage, but before we get into the details of how that looks like, I would want you to take a look at a very short clip that actually explains what Reading Right does.
We here at Reading Right are working to change education and make it more meaningful and understandable. We start with selecting articles from noetic newspapers, periodicals, journals, or scholar articles to learn what really happens in every field. The range of subjects for such evolving a learning can never be finite and will keep growing and diversifying. And so do we. Keeping all of this in view, here's introducing an app that curates original articles from authentic and verified sources, so I should then explain it to you. While curating, we only select articles that are non-sensational and highly educational. When I say we, I mean thorough experts from the field or domain who not only fundamentally or conceptually understand the subject but also practically perceive it. Normally, education needs 4 types of avenues to be covered for a thorough explaining. Number 1. Word meanings of the text. It is important to understand meanings of the words customized to the context. So, to explain them, we have expert teachers or researchers to insert these word meanings over the original text just by selecting and a simple use of the insert button for word meanings. These are embedded by the blue highlighted text on the app, where the user can just click on the blue words and get the meaning of the inserted text. To close the box, they have to click anywhere outside the box and the pop-up box goes away. Number 2. Concept meanings of the text. We often see some words which are very technical and terms specific to a subject. These terms are not the typical dictionary words. These are explained by field experts by selecting the concept word and simply clicking on the insert button for concepts. This can be seen as a red highlighted terms on the app. Click on any red highlighted word in the text and you will find a box pop up with an explanation to that concept or term. Number 3. Line-wise explanation. Once the terms, both technical and non-technical dictionary words have been explained, then all that is needed is a line-wise explanation of the text. Explaining the line will cover how the text comes together and what it is that the writer wants to say really. To access this, you'll be required to click the question mark button at the end of the line that your teacher wants to explain. When you click on the button, you'll find the explanation box pop up and the text being explained mentioned above it. Using this tool also allows us to explain portions of a line.
Oh, nice. But how will the viewer understand which portion of the line is being explained?
You will see the yellow highlight on the portion of the line that is being explained when you click on the question mark button.
Hey, I can see the image attachments in the explanations too.
Absolutely, and video attachments too. So there's no stone left unturned in trying to explain an idea, concept, or line to a student. You can even zoom into the pictures to see them more closely. This becomes very helpful when we study graphs. Moreover, you can swipe to see multiple reference images. Now, all that is literally left to complete the chapter explaining is to provide you with other information that may be seemingly unrelated and not there in the textbook, but still mentioned as an extra fact by our teacher, which we cover under the bulk buttons. So, just click on the bulk buttons and explore all the extra facts.
I see audio buttons too that have the voice versions of the text. And whoa, you have tailor-made voice recordings for each explanation also. I am amazed.
True that, but you know what is truly amazing?
What?
Can you see the numberings on the question mark buttons and the bulb buttons here? They come very handy when a reader gets stuck and wants to clarify which explanation they need help with. They can use these number references and avail support from our field experts, researchers, or school teachers using our live chat feature.
Well, that was the learning short of what we've been doing. Further to that, I would also want to clarify that using this very technology, while teachers are being able to insert explanations from the video we've understood, we as a team are determined to make sure that the newspapers, the very long forgotten segment of learning, is again taken up in all seriousness and part of our education. So that is what we make sure we explain using the same technology, of course, bringing in what we call explanatory journalism, a whole new way. So, all in all, we're today lending this technology to various schools, colleges, postgraduate institutions to help explain each and every line concept word so that it becomes a lot more easier for all those who are actually accessing it. Furthermore, this can also be lent for a particular price on our marketplace, which allows any individual teacher who may not be a part of any institution to create explained content and sell there for a price, so that education is a lot more standardized even for those who are actually seeking it from remote parts of the country and beyond. All in all, we are determined that everybody who's actually looking to educate themselves in an explained sort of manner, they're also taking to our smarticles, which is educationally relevant news articles, because hey, we're definitely not taking to any sort of sensational articles, not just given the times today, but never in India or abroad there has been a good time to discuss sensational articles. And hence, we're very, very certain to make sure these articles are 100% approved to be educationally relevant. For all of these reasons and more, we're a proud organization to bring to you explanatory education and explanatory journalism, and also to let you know that we are launching our app tomorrow on an exclusive access basis, for which you should be able to download the app from the App Store and very soon from the iOS versions. In order to access the versions right away, all you got to do is go on to web.readingright.in, details of which will be provided in the description box below. And you can access them right away without having to wait for the app, which although comes out tomorrow. Before we get into the details of this particular session, it is also important to know why we're having a teachers' roundtable. Across the globe, there has been a lot of discussion around what education should be like and the various problems around it, and we've heard enough. Today, for the first time, we have brought to you teachers from some of the best schools in India. These people have agreed to discuss those uncomfortable truths that everyone is hoping to get answers to. Today, you will understand what it is that a teacher actually understands, what they actually perceive, and what goes on in their minds. First and foremost, I would like to introduce you to an extremely wonderful bunch of teachers who are extremely brave and bold to be able to come forth and discuss the real issues in education. Because unless these are discussed, as they rightly say, we will never be able to make our move towards solving the inherent problems that lie in the system. So, big thank you to all of our guests today. And on that note, I would like you to meet our most wonderful panel for today. I would like to begin with our first panelist, Ma'am Priscilla Naveen. Ma'am Priscilla Naveen belongs to the Trier World Academy. She's an experienced IBDPAS and A-level IGCSE business management facilitator and a college guidance counselor. She has a demonstrated history of working in the education management industry. There is no need to say about just how talented she is, because she is skilled not just in public speaking and curriculum development, but also training teachers of various backgrounds. She herself has got an educational professional degree from Christ University, from the Bangalore University, I'm sorry, and she has got a degree in business administration. And since she has been teaching, and it's been over 9 years that she's been acing her job. Please meet Priscilla, ma'am.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us today. It is our utmost honor to have you with us. Moving on, we have Jennifer, ma'am. Jennifer Brown. She's from Stonehill International School. She has not been hoping to become a teacher when she started out. She was hoping to become an actress, and which is why she has a very interesting pedagogy of teaching students. How she actually teaches them is by using theatrics. I believe you when you actually hope that I wish I was also in her class today. Right, teachings have involved various sort of innovative methods, and all of our panelists today will be discussing their innovative methods very soon. So before I get into further details on that, let me go on with the description of Jennifer, ma'am. She has been a teacher of English language and English literature and theory of knowledge and drama. She has been teaching across various countries, boarding schools ranging from those in UK, China, Philippines, Germany, and even in India. Currently, she's the head of Department for English Language and Literature at Stonehill International School, along with being the TOK coordinator. She is also teaching the International Baccalaureate Diploma and Middle Years program at Stonehill International. All of these details and more is enough reason for us to actually feel extremely honored to have her with us today. Thank you so much for being with us today, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for that welcome.
Our next panelist is Mr. Kuntal Majumdar from Mayo College. Kuntal sir is somebody who knows everything and every way to be able to connect with a student in the most fantastic of ways. Why so? Because hey, he's been the house master. I'm not going to tell you which house. If you are somebody who already knows Kuntal Majumdar, then I'm sure you're rooting for the right house. Apart from that, he's been somebody who's been very proactive with debates and dramatics. He has been someone who's also remained a former supervisor in hockey. He's also the editor-in-chief of the newsletter and magazine at Mayo College, and has had a teaching experience for 26 years across various formats of schooling. He is also a certified child protection and safeguarding assessment degree from Council of British International School in UK. Thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to do this with us today. Moving on, we have Purnima ma'am. Purnima Datta from the Doon School. She's been working at the Doon School since 1994. She teaches history to all the students of IB, IGCSE and ISC programs. And she has served as the head of humanities for 2 tenures. And the most recent one ending right now in April 2021. Apart from that, Purnima ma'am was also the housemaster of 2 boarding houses at Doon. She's been a part of the panel of educators which were picked out for the IB History Curriculum Review. An experienced teacher with tremendous amount of experience, with tremendous amount of understanding and tremendous amount of students who she has been able to shape into some of the best human beings of today. She's skilled in classroom management, lesson planning, educational technology, And my favorite thing about her is that she belongs to the city where I grew up at, Kolkata. She has done her master's degree from Jadavpur University in history. Interestingly so, our other panelist, Mr. Kuntal Majumdar, is also from Kolkata. So don't blame us if we get into a whole, reunion about all things that Bengalis and Bengal is all about. Moving further, before that, thank you so much, Purnima ma'am, for being with us today. It is an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our final panelist for today is Rushik Dhuraiya. Rushik sir is part of Poddar International School. He's working as a maths teacher at Poddar International School since April 2015. He has also been a maths teacher who is a phenomenal record of scoring 100 out of 100 in mathematics in GSEB exam. So if ever a student has the audacity to say that sir, mistakes happen, well, you will know better because Rushik sir has never made a mistake in maths. Currently serving as an HOD since the past 5 years at that. He is also training people in various sessions and workshops, of course, around mathematics and bringing in innovative tools and technology to be able to make sure maths is completely revisited with a whole new mindset. All of these reasons and more makes us extremely honored to have Rushik sir with us today. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us today.
Thank you, ma'am, for the honor. I'm highly obliged by this invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so, so very much. Before we move ahead, we have a very small clip to reiterate loud and clear as to what our panelists have signed up for. We're extremely grateful to them, but for everyone watching them, please know that teachers are here to give you honest answers about what really prevails because they're determined to make sure that the education system improves. It's not just one person who can actually make things happen. So if they're the ones who are being blamed about various things that's happening, they're also the ones who are willing to take it upon themselves to endeavor and make a change for the better. So if you are actually already wondering and curious about what is going to entail, then trust me, you need to up that a lot more because the questions will surprise you in a manner like never before. Before going forward, a short clip on what the Teachers Roundtable is all about. On that note, we're all set to get this started. We will start with the first question for all our panelists. Before we want to get into the entire dynamics of how education actually works, it's important to know how our teachers actually teach. So the first question today is, tell us about one teaching technique that defines your style of teaching. So, ma'am, should we start with Purnima, ma'am?
I think what works best for me, I can only speak for myself,
Yes,
is to be excited about what I'm going to teach. I get myself excited, so that excitement is kind of then transferred to the students who are more ready to learn once that happens. Uh, as for approaches to teaching, I think it differs and depends from age group and curriculum. It depends on the the particular student, also differentiating the teaching for each of the students is very important to me.
Great. That sounds very very interesting, ma'am. Because it is very true that you need to customize your teaching techniques as per what the student really wants. But having the excitement, I think, is probably the best thing to wear as a teacher, and that is definitely one answer I didn't see coming my way. So thank you so much. Could we move on to Rushik, sir? What about your one teaching technique that sets your work different from the rest?
Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am, once again. Yes, I would like to start with saying that in my 14 years official school career, I have implemented all the techniques which were required as in now, as per the time duration or as per the situation. Like in the earlier time, we were allowed with beating also, because there were no that much strong punishment from the teacher's side. It was just
Mhm.
light punishment. So we have implemented that also because of the requirement with not all the students, but as the, with some of the students. Talking about currently, now we are all are aware that due to the pandemic, since 1.5 year, we all are shifted to online teaching, which we
Mhm.
never thought earlier. Earlier also, this online teaching was happening, but we were
Mhm.
never sure that this is going to be so, in limelight one fine day. So currently, I am going with all the online teaching related techniques. But one thing which makes me special in students' eyes and parents' eyes, that is that whenever any mathematical concept I want to teach, rather I want to make them learn, I connect it with, I call it CMM, connect math with moral. So I try to connect that mathematical concept with moral stories or mnemonics. Mnemonics, everybody knows that mnemonics are are the best thing for below average student also, average also, and above average also, to understand the concept easily. So, like in trigonometry, I'll just give one example. I'll not take much time. Like in
Mhm.
trigonometry, we remember the ratios, right?
Mhm.
Sine ratio, cosine ratio, and all.
Right.
So there are various techniques through which you can remember. There are some students who mug it up, but we just tell them that worst come worst, if you don't remember it by method, then we have mnemonics for it. So mnemonics in that, we create many mnemonics, but on this platform, I will share only one. It's like a father. Father is sitting with the family and asking children that today I'm going to cook for all of you. It's a Sunday, so I'm going to cook for all of you. So what is the menu which you want to prefer? So like the daughter or son is telling, Papa bhaji pav, and then Papa is responding with ha ha beta. So it's like Papa bhaji pav. So it's P. We just take the initials P,
Mhm.
Papa, bhaji
Right.
pav, B, and then P. And then in the denominator, we keep ha ha beta, that is HHB. So together, when you put all these first initial letters, it becomes the first three ratios: sine theta, cos theta, and tan theta. So that is how we make that interesting. Another thing is that story, moral story. So if I'm allowed with 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I'll even go
Go ahead.
into deeper.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's okay.
No, no, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, so like one of the concept in higher classes, especially in 11th and 12th, when we teach differentiation. So
Mhm.
differentiation to the audience, lovely audience who are present here, they must be knowing differentiation is actually differentiating things. So
Mhm.
it's a kind of, according to us, it's a kind of not that good thing, right? We don't differentiate things if
Mhm.
it not required. So what
Right.
we do, what I do specially, I connect this with a moral story that if suppose in this situation or any situation, a person tries to be constant, adamant, constant
Mhm.
in terms of negative way, not in positive way, constant
Right.
in terms of negative way. So the
Mhm.
demon in terms of differentiation will run towards him and will
Mhm.
differentiate him. And we all know that constant differentiation becomes zero. So the person will be vanished. Okay. This is
Oh.
one scene. Then second scene is that there is some person who is willing to adopt the changes. That is e raised to x is
Mm-hmm.
another function, mathematical function. Now
Right.
that person is so positive and very ready to adopt the changes. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens now? The demo is running towards him to differentiate. But as e raised to x is very good in adopting the changes, so he is not going to get any kind of effect because we know that differentiation of e raised to x is e raised to x itself. So he will fight with the differentiation, that demon, nothing will happen to him. Now what connectivity we bring through this short story, that in life also, if you be that constant adamant in negative terms, and if
Mm-hmm.
such situation, differentiation situation comes, you will be vanished, you will not survive. But if you have a wonderful person, I will say a wonderful person, okay, in terms of friend also, father, mother, whoever, if you have that wonderful person with you, that is e raised to x, and you, by being with that e raised to x, if you are having a good bonding, then if demonstration, that demon comes, differentiation, then we know that as per the mathematical rule, if constant time e raised to x is there, then also constant will be kept outside. E raised to x derivative will remain e raised to x only. So what happens if they both are together? Again, if
Right.
that demon comes, they will not be vanished. So we connect this in moral story form, that in life also mathematics is not just a number or something. It teaches us many things, but we need to change our perspective. So this is my technique which makes me different. Thank you.
Wow, that is just absolutely wonderful to hear. It is amazing for all those math enthusiasts. If you're wondering how maths can be made interesting, well, you know who to contact right now, because believe me, this was something which was absolutely new. And to have teachers do things like this, that's what makes education so much more relatable and more than ever impactful, which stays with us for over the years to come. Moving forward, Priscilla, ma'am, we would like to hear from you how you have that one teaching technique that defines your work. We've heard so much about your wonderful teaching techniques. We've heard so much about your journey. We're so excited to hear from you. What is it that you actually use and make your classes so magical?
First of all, I really want to appreciate Mr. Rushik. I wish I was his student, and probably I would have been teaching math. If I was taught math the same way that he's been teaching, I would embrace the subject. All
I
right. So
couldn't.
coming to my answering your question on technique,
Mhm.
I believe from so far as my experience, I think at the core, what has really worked for me is the healthy student and teacher relationship. I think
Mhm.
that has worked so far. That is the only fundamental at the core that I built my teaching techniques on. So when I
Mhm.
say healthy student relationship, what I mean is, unless the student is willing to learn from a teacher that he
Mhm.
or she likes, the learning is not going to happen. And I've also
True.
seen, if they like the teacher, they like the subject.
Mhm.
And since I teach the teenage, from age group of 14 to 19, they are
Right.
more connected to the teacher. So if they do not build a bond with the teacher, they are not going to learn. No matter how best technique you use, no matter
Hmm.
what you do, it's not going to happen. So these are teenagers that you deal with. And
Right.
and every day is an experience. Every day they come up with different things. So I must be allowing them to stop
Mhm.
and ask me in a class, hey, you're boring. Can you kindly stop? I allow that. I allow that with my students, so they are able to make use of the time. So if I'm teaching 5 minutes, I want the 5 minutes teaching to be worth it. So otherwise, it's of no use for me teaching a whole subject or whole 40 minutes class if my students is not reciprocating anything from me. So I love that too. So I give them boundaries. So the moment they have a confusion, or they're able to stop me and say, can you redo this for me? But if
Mhm.
a student is not comfortable with the teacher, he's going to sit the whole 40 minutes gaining nothing, absolutely nothing. So I give that room, because when I was growing up, I couldn't even
Mhm.
ask a doubt with my teacher. It was The teacher was there, the students were, way. And if you see in some of the schools, there's a pedestal up there, okay, where the teacher stands, and
Mhm.
and the students have to, digest what the teacher is saying. But that bridge I want to break. So I'm going to stand equally in the same platform and I say, hey, I want to learn something from you today. So I start
Oh,
off with that. So I learn everything from them. With technology in, the students are much more informed than we are at times. So I
right.
love that. So when there's a balanced learning, so I don't like to call myself a teacher at any point. So I say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a learner too. So together
Right.
we learn. So that has been one of my fundamental at the
Mm-hmm.
core where I built. And the other thing I would like to add on is my techniques is I use, since my subject is very
Right.
practical synthetic business. So it's changing environment. So I have news, so your portal can really help out in terms of, news articles that come up. So I
Mm-hmm.
take up an activity. So for instance, if I have recruitment as a chapter, so I
Right.
would allow them, to really do a role play of an interviewee and an interviewer.
Oh,
So they come
lovely.
dressed. They come dressed as an interviewer, and I teach them body language alongside. So I
Mm-hmm.
allow them to enter in a way, frame questions, and
Right.
and each one gets a chance to be an interviewer and interviewee. So most of my teaching is through activities, always through activities. So that's how they enjoy it, and they can remember it because they've role played it. So that's
Oh my
something that
God,
I
that is just so interesting. This is great and this is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your methods with us, ma'am. Moving forward, I would request Kuntal sir. How about you share, your teaching technique that defines your work?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yes, I also agree with Ma'am Priscilla as well as with Mr. Rushik also that there are many techniques, but yes, you need to create a bond first. The bonding is most important. Since I teach literature, so for me, storytelling of many activities, storytelling is something very, very important, very poignant also. Like through storytelling, I feel I can reach out to three types of learner. The visual learner can visualize the picture being envisioned there. The auditory learners can connect with the voice modulation, the intonations, and the kinesthetic learners can connect with the emotions over there. So that's what I
Right.
feel that storytelling, one of them. And apart from that, at Mayo College, we of course use another technique called museology, museum as the toolkit. Okay, so I'll cite a small example. Like I was
Mhm.
teaching the students even interactions like communications also. So we
Right.
took the kids to the museum, the Mayo College Museum, and there we had a mannequin of one of our old principal. Okay,
Mhm.
so Mr. Gibson's. So I said, suppose Mr. the mannequin comes back to life, and
Mhm.
you are getting an opportunity to interview him. Mayo College
Mhm.
of his time and Mayo College now. How would you do that? So some of them like dressed up as Gibson and they were just role playing over there. So this is something like you can create a bond in the class and teaching
Right.
becomes fun. That's what I would like to say.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. Now we'll go on to hearing from Jennifer, ma'am. What has been her experience in defining teaching techniques? Although I would love if you could also elaborate a little bit on how you use dramatics into your teaching technology, because I'm just so curious to know more details on that.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'd like to say that I entirely agree with what Miss Priscilla was saying. I think that to begin with, you have to have that relationship where a student feels that they are in a trusting environment where they can be themselves. And I was very happy to hear her say that, she sees herself on an equal platform, and I definitely agree with that. There are definitely things that I can learn from my students. I am not the authority in this situation by any stretch of the imagination. Um, and then the second thing I think that probably has kind of defined my work is ensuring that the learning environment is engaging and fun. If students are not enjoying what they're doing, if they are heading to a class full of dread, then they are not going to learn anything, and they're certainly not going to remember it. And that's going to stay with them as a negative experience for the rest of their lives. So it's absolutely vital, I think, that all teachers realize that they have a responsibility to ensure that the learning environment that they create is fun, engaging, exciting. I think we had that word come up already, excitement. It's our responsibility to do that. We're not there to fill their brains with information. That method of schooling has gone. That's what we were doing 30, 40, 50 years ago. So just ensuring that they're in a fun, engaging, exciting environment. When it comes to dramatics, with the subject that I teach, obviously if I'm teaching drama, then it's kind of obvious how that works out, I guess. But when it comes to language and literature, I definitely want to make sure that they're in an environment where they're going to develop communication skills. I often say to my students that, it's unlikely that they will one day be in a career where they're analysing poetry or analysing Shakespeare unless they decided to be an English teacher. But they will be communicating. So I want to hear the students' voices. I give them every opportunity I can for discussions, presentations, because actually they're developing the skills that will be actually more useful for them probably in the future when it comes to good communication skills, thinking about communicating with an audience, not necessarily as an actor, but as themselves. How can they communicate with the audience that they have? And making them realize that, one day they will be probably in some kind of career where they need to communicate with an audience, whether that be in a meeting, whether that be at some kind of conference. So helping them to develop those communication skills via exploring poetry or novels or, some kind of global issue or whatever it might be, gives them skills that are useful in the future, as I say, beyond analysing a poem, which, whilst I love analysing poetry, it's unlikely they're going to be doing that in 20 years' time.
Wow, that is extremely intriguing and very, very interesting. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer, ma'am. My next question to all of you would be, what is your objective as a teacher? Because every teacher has endeavored to be able to make sure that this is what we want to achieve. So if there is that one objective amongst the many objectives that you have, what is that most pertinent objective that you have to be able to make sure of? How about you start by completing this line? Actually, if you could just fill in this line for me, your objective as a teacher is to ensure that. We'll start with Kuntal sir. Okay, I think Kuntal sir's internet. I think Kuntal sir's internet is stuck. So till we can have him come back on this. Could we take Priscilla, ma'am, your take on this?
My primary objective is to ensure that the student has a lifelong learning experience. So basically a lifelong learning. I'm not teaching them for a season or for grades. So they would remember all through. The subject is not meant for an exam. So my subject is not meant for an exam. So they need to learn. It's a lifelong learning. So they will remember this for life. That's my objective.
Great.
To ensure it's a lifelong learning.
Right. What about you, Rushik sir?
Yes, I do agree with Priscilla ma'am that nowadays we know that whatever teacher is teaching or students are learning, it's not just a momentary thing. It has to be something which can be lifelong with them, and that also can be very, very helpful as per the situation wherein they will be. Okay, and we have seen the past 3-4 decades that how the education has changed. So what is my objective is mainly focusing on how to make my students capable of using the concepts of mathematics in problem solving in their routine life also, not only in exercise questions or something, but in routine life, like how they will build their competency. Like competency is very much needed in every field wherever you go. So how they will survive with the use of those competency skills. So my aim is, or my objective is that with the concept of mathematics, they should be able to face any situation in life.
Got it. Kuntal sir, what about you? Your objective as a teacher?
Yes, as a teacher, it's just not only one objective. To be very precise, there are many. But first and foremost thing, I would like to have my students to be very good human being. And for that reason, I would like to instill in them the values of the ethical and moral values, like the values of humanities, like you can say courage, discipline, humility, empathy, and all. And second and foremost thing is that I need to instill the love for my subject. I try to teach literature. For me, literature is not confined within the books or within the text. It is a cohesive force that binds the past with the present, the far with the near, man with his creator, man with his environment, and man with man. So there's a sense of bonding. So that bonding needs to be developed. So that's my second objective. And third, rather, I would like to say, like, I would like to provoke learning without delivering much of the content. Rather, for that reason, I would like to incorporate over here, as Ma'am Jennifer was telling, that arts, different form of arts, performing arts, literary art, as well as visual art into my pedagogy. Because I feel art is the poetry in a prosaic world. That's what I can say.
True, true, absolutely true. That is just so beautifully put. Thank you so much, sir. Purnima ma'am, what about you? What would be your objective as a teacher?
In teaching history, it is very important in any case for students to be critical thinkers, and that is what I try to make my students become, that they're thinkers, that they evaluate, that they don't judge. Right? And of course, most important is that they're equipped to continue learning because of the foundations that they receive while at school, while we are able to teach them.
Wow, that is so, so important. I think all of these answers are just so wonderful. It is so important for us to be reminded of these answers before anything else because we tend to forget the larger goals. We tend to forget the inherent reasons why we're actually setting out to actually endeavor such an important job like education. Jennifer, ma'am, how would you respond to this?
With very similar ideas, actually. I think that my goal is to ensure that students have the confidence in themselves, that they know that they are prepared for the world as best they can be, and that is going to be about skills and experience, and touching on some of the things that my colleagues here have said. It's about ensuring that they have the moral values to go out and be a good human being, or that they have this, the confidence in their own skills and ability to think critically and to, hold themselves up in a discussion or an argument. I think we all know that education in recent years has moved away from content. It is about the whole person. It's about the skills. It's what in the UK we used to refer to as the invisible curriculum. It's about
Right.
who they are as a human being rather than the content, for sure.
Wow, that just sounds so pertinent and important for us to be able to take into consideration on a daily basis, time and again when we're actually doing something like this. Now, all of this has also got me thinking about something which is very, very crucial and on everyone's minds, which is that about marks. So, are marks really important? Because as teachers, you all are telling us that these are the bigger things that you all would actually hope to be able to inculcate in all of your students. And that is something which you give more importance to, you actually put in your radar. But would marks also feature in your process of teaching as something which is important and must happen? And if it is, how important are these marks in your process of teaching? We will start with Priscilla, ma'am.
Um, Honestly, for me personally, I really don't hold that as a high priority. However, having said that, I also would like to add on because we need certain order in the education system and therefore we have marks. But that is not my priority during my teaching process or learning process. See, marks is a result of what they're learning anyway. So if they are best, if I'm putting my 100% in it, and if a student is also putting in, 100%, marks eventually would come about. So I would
Right.
not place the marks as the number one priority as such. Probably it's somewhere in the end for me because that itself shows what they've learned. So marks is an evidence to what they've learned, I say. So I really don't place marks as the topmost. And I think subjectively for a few of the discussions we may add on to this. I would like to add on to this. But as of now, pertaining to this question, yes, it's not of a much priority to me,
Right.
but it is
Rushik,
important.
right. Rushik, sir?
Yeah, I could remember Lord Krishna at this moment. Karmanni vadika raste ma phaleshu kadachana. So it says everything that when you really do something or you learn something from the bottom of your heart and with the kind of understanding that or knowing that the importance of that subject or concept is going to be very helpful in life. I think automatically, if with that importance which you have, the way you have taken the importance in life of that concept or those subjects,
Mhm.
definitely it is directly proportional to the marks which you are going to get. And definitely, Priscilla ma'am has told that marks definitely does not matter, but we know that our education system, it clearly says, and there is no other way actually. There is no other way by which we can put in children in different categories so that we can give them priority in whichever field they want to go. Because in every field, suppose we don't have marks, if we just remove the mark system, what happens in medical? Suppose, let's say, for example, medical, everybody wants to become a doctor. Is it possible? Practically, not possible. So there has to be some cutoff, and that's the reason every colleges and every institutions, career related institutions, they set cutoffs. Even schools set the cutoffs for giving admission for various branches. So as
Mhm.
per what I can see and I can say, marks cannot be completely neglected, but at the same time, because of marks, not necessarily we should give too much of pressure to the children. So yes, I'm on the both the sides.
What about you, Purnima ma'am?
An analogy just came to my mind. It's like I have a skin disorder and I've gone to the doctor. Now the doctor gives me a whole lot of ointments and I get uh, my good skin back, but
Mm-hmm.
perhaps only temporarily. So
Right.
a good teacher would be akin to that doctor who will look to cure the underlying problem so that skin issue doesn't come back. Of course, that's a negative sort of a situation. In the case of
Mm-hmm.
teachers, we start with a clean slate and we want that slate to be filled by the student based on his understanding, and then the marks will automatically come. So, the success of a teacher is sometimes reflected in marks, and marks are important for students. But when it comes to teachers, I am sure all teachers' major focus is on the development of the child, of his understanding in that teacher's subject, on curing the underlying misconceptions, misunderstandings, rather than to make the child just mug up content and score marks.
Right. Kuntal sir?
Yeah, I agree with most of my colleagues over here. Yes, marks are important, but that is not the be all and end all in education. Rather, what I
Mm-hmm.
personally feel is that marks is the graphical representation of the learning process, what the child has learned. Okay, it's his
Right.
graphical representation. Rather, I would say the child's life, there are two parts. One is the schooling and one is education. Marks is a part of
Right.
the schooling. Education is something
Absolutely.
else. If we take education, then we can say, like in the words of Swami Vivekananda, it's the
Hmm.
manifestation of the perfection already existing in man. For that reason, we don't require any marks. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Right. Great. Jennifer ma'am, your response to this?
Yes, I think you have to look beyond what the marks represent. So it's about the nature of the assessment as much as anything. When I was younger, um, education was so content based that the marks really represented the student that had the best memory. It was a memory
Right.
test.
Mm-hmm.
And it had no reflection on a student's ability or understanding or skills. It was a memory test, and I frequently remember um, occasions where I would have an exam and I would have a test, and I had a good memory and I would do well. But if you'd asked me those questions 2 weeks later, I wouldn't have remembered any of them because it was stored in my short-term memory. So, on paper, I looked like I knew all about this. And thankfully, I think we've moved away from that. So, what those marks represent now are assessments that are probably more about the understanding or the concepts or the skills that those students have developed. So the marks in themselves are not necessarily a bad thing. It's about what we're assessing that I think we need to focus on. And if it's still a system where it really is just a memory test and all those marks do is show which student has the best memory, then there's a problem with the marks.
Right. That is absolutely and fairly true. But then would still wonder as to how the education system came about being such, where everyone has given way more impetus to marks than what we as teachers are actually kind of putting out there. So it's very important for not just the teachers, for everyone in the system to be able to take that initiative to make sure that this doesn't go down with the students, because we have teachers here who are from the best institutions in the country, who are practicing subjects which are from of diverse nature, and still if this is not what they actually are giving that much impetus to, how is it that this becomes the end all and the all of all the students in class? Because somewhere I think this is the system which is actually not doing enough. And when I say system, I don't mean an undefined body. I mean the way the entire structure has been carved, the way the curriculum has been shaped, the way each class is actually deciding certain criteria, the administration and everyone involved in making sure that a student is done well, including the colleges that actually take them in for admissions. Right. So for all of these reasons and more, I think while teachers are actually imparting a very different ideology in their students, they cannot do it alone unless the system supports them in by all their means and ways. Because marks is something that is eating up all the students more than we can possibly imagine. This is something that does bother us, because we also as an organization stand for real education. We also came about with this entire system hoping to make sure that the classroom experience is one where they can actually keep the books aside and study beyond what is between the lines or within the lines, because all of that has been taken care of by some sort of a system, so that in class the teachers can go beyond the books. In fact, we are hoping that there comes a time when teachers actually say, do not bring books and material to class. We're going to do innovative ways and techniques to be able to learn the subject. But of course, we also understand that students are concerned about knowing the details, because at the end of it they are to sit for exams and they are to get through with the process and get the marks that they're holding so much weight to. Which also brings me to the next question. While this is something that bothers us, that how we can make our systems more and more better to be able to make education inside of class more inclusive, more innovative, this is something we're hoping to understand from all of you. What are some of the things that bother you as a teacher about a student's education? If you could just list out 2 or 3 things at max as to what are those things that actually bother you as a teacher about the education of your student. Kuntal sir, why don't we start with you?
Sure, sure, why not? Okay, I want to say that above everything, first is parenting. Today we come across parents who are rather over enthused or too interfering into the child's decision making. Let's go back to
Right.
Farhan Qureshi. Okay, he went to IIT because what Kapoor Saab will think, right? Now it's not only Kapoor Saab, even what Kapoor Saab's daughter will think, that's also important. Okay, now the the child is a father's eye, look, father's apple of father's eye. So he ought to be the eye of the nation, either go to IIT or go to II. Or child ought to be a doctor. The grandfather was from the army, so he need to don the uniform. Why? Where is the child over here? The child's childhood is lost in the process. He's in a pressure cooker scenario, and what I feel that it is like making him more mechanical, and thus that's the question where the marks come in over here. He becomes marks oriented. Education becomes more of marks oriented. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful response. It is very, very true and quite concerning at that. For those of you who are wondering who Farhan Qureshi is. He's taken a reference from a very famous movie made on education starring Amir Khan, and it is called Three Idiots, where, of course, this comparison comes in that every child is being compared to the neighbor's son or the neighbor's daughter or the relatives they're at, and that becomes a very, very emotional message that goes out from that movie. And rightly so, Kuntal. So, that is something which is very important that parents must take into consideration, and also about the decision making, so that students are rendered independent because they're capable of handling stuff on their own right from class 5 6. Even if they're not seemingly adult, in their minds they're going to actually mature when they're given that opportunity upon them. Jennifer, ma'am, what about you? Your response to this?
I think one of the problems with education, and I'm going to steal some ideas from the wonderful late Ken Robinson, is that we are trying a kind of one size fits all system, and we're dealing with human beings, and every human being is different, and they have different needs, ideas, aspirations, interests, skills, emotional needs. And yet we're trying to put every single child through the same system and create some kind of uniformity with society. We are moving away from that, thankfully. But I do think that to some extent, when we're kind of trying to force children to learn certain things or take certain subjects, we're not really allowing them to kind of find who they really are and experience enough to kind of develop their own interests or own ideas. They should be able to finish school kind of knowing who they are and what they like. And sometimes that opportunity isn't there if it's kind of heavily curriculum based. And the idea that all children by a certain age should have certain knowledge or abilities or whatever. And I think the other thing that goes along with that is the idea that children develop at different stages, and we are putting them through that system assuming that all 15-year-olds are the same, and all 15-year-olds are not the same. And it shouldn't be a competition with other 15-year-olds. People develop at different stages. There will be some students that don't really get a good understanding or find themselves or know what they want to do until they're older than that, and that's okay. So it's a dangerous suggestion, but should we put children through education in these kind of batches where they are all the same age at the same time? Especially, some will be a year apart. You've got students whose birthdays are in August or September, or depending on the school's cutoff. So I think I don't know what the answer is, but finding a way that an education can be more unique for an individual, so that that they have more choices over what they want to learn.
Right,
Okay.
right. It is very important that they're given the choices, the liberty, because freedom of choices is something we take for granted, and that is something which nobody provides enough of, and is, of course, extremely important. Priscilla, ma'am, your take on this?
One thing that really bothers me, I really like to add on to what I totally agree with what Miss Jennifer and Mr. Kumpal said. It's completely society driven. And see what we try to tell the students and teach, but the parents are not involved in this teaching process. So they have already set an idea that my son or my daughter needs to be there. They have already made a goal for them already. And here we are trying to change that in the classroom. So there's a conflict between the parent and the student. So when they come down to talk to us, what happens is I have taught something, I've embraced, I've put a student in a better place, and here comes the parent who's contradicting it, and it becomes a mess. So that bothers me because I do not know, because I cannot play the role of a parent. I think the society needs to change as a whole, and I think I'm hoping for the best, because there's a question that comes in. I was watching an interview, and one of the philanthropists said, has a school failed me, or I have failed school? So it's most precisely the school has failed the students, because we put them under a standardized, format, which any curriculum has set of 4 or 5 best educators represent the whole of the education system, and have decided certain assessment objectives which may not fall for every child. For instance, in my class, I would like to take an example. One of the times, you're made to write a written exam. whereas a child may be absolutely good in explaining that verbally, and he may not be able to write as much as. And so I don't, so I have to grade anyway, I have to grade. So when it comes to grading, I have to go by the curriculum and the assessment objectives, and I fail to see that I cannot bring this child at the same platform as the rest. That bothers me the most, because I know this child is capable, and if you put him in a group discussion, he's brilliant. He or she is very brilliant when they're able to express what they think, but then asked to put in the same structure that a curriculum has asked them to do it, they fail. So it bothers me to say, okay, this child is not good enough because you have set a certain goal and they're not matching up to it. So that bothers me as a teacher constantly, and it is, I'm sure all of us face it, and this is what teachers face every day, so
Right.
that bothers me.
No, of course it is. It is very, very important, ma'am. And as you rightly said, that we have a grading, pattern which puts everything and everyone in the same bucket, and it's not, getting tweaked to the various circumstances and needs of every individual participating. That couldn't have been expressed better. Rushik sir, what about you?
Yes, I do agree with all the three panelists who spoke about their things which bothers them. More or less, our as an educator, our but the things which bother us are same. But still, I would like to say, as in when the time passes or the different generation comes, different things come out as a bothering thing for a teacher or for an educator. Like earlier, we were bothered about a child taking mathematics, but he wants to omit another subject, but he is forcefully doing it because of the compulsion. So that is what something was bothering. But thanks to NEP 2020, that now that thing is going to be sorted out. That we are going to, we are going to have in future students like who is good in mathematics and good in dance as well. That combination can be done. Somebody is commerce background, from commerce background, means he is taking accountancy also, and he is fond of baking. So he is going to take baking as a subject as well. So that is something which I'm seeing the positive side first. So thankfully that such kind of things which were bothering us are slowly and gradually going to get sorted out. But education is a consistent process. It is not going to stop ever. So again, some new things will come out as a bothering thing. Right now, if I personally feel at per situation that even though such flexibilities are being adopted by higher authorities, we always blame higher authorities, but they are also concerned, they are also doing things. Problem comes that in any situation, student who are the main stakeholders, remember they are the one who are main stakeholders. This community, he has to adopt, has to understand it, and very clearly they have to get it inside their brain that we should not be in any under pressure under any situation. Okay, in any education system, you can see when it comes to assessment, students are always under assessment maximum, not all, but maximum. So this is what is bothering me, that students, when they realize that we don't need to worry for any such assessment or something, things will go on the right things, on the right code. I think that the maximum our problems will be sorted out.
Right. No, no, of course, that is so deep, and it is very, very important to actually consider things like this. I'm particularly hooked on to the fact that how students you is someone you've placed as one of the most important stakeholders, which I think will be a very good reminder to everyone who's watching this, and everyone who holds that they are part of this educational world, trying and endeavoring a career out of this. So that is something which they must always keep in mind at all times. uh, right, that is of course a phenomenal set of responses that we have. Purnima ma'am, your take on this?
I entirely agree with my colleagues here when they say that the unfair pressure of societal expectation, family expectations, is something that is very frustrating for teachers to be dealing with. Additionally, also, what really bothers me is that the whole system has is becoming increasingly incentive driven, material incentive driven. So,
Right.
for instance, even when students are doing service, or they are doing all of which is a part of education, mind you, it's very mindfully and consciously included as part of a curriculum. Service, creative uh, pursuits, all of these now have uh, are chosen by students, uh, keeping in mind, okay, is it going to look good on my college application? uh, is my, setting up a new service initiative going to help me get into X college? I mean, this level of education being, dragged down to being so incentive driven is a great dampener for any uh, education system, I would think. And this needs to be addressed. How? Well, that is another discussion.
Right, ma'am. That is very, very well taken, and I'm sure all of these pointers will help us also as an organization improve, because these are very, very important insights to keep in mind. Now, this particular question is going to be differentiated from the next question in a very, very intricate sort of way, and I'm going to explain that how, because when we talk about certain things in education bothering us, that is something which does not necessarily relate to us or relate to our immediate interactions with people around us. But when we're talking about a pet peeve as a teacher, that is something which is something that we're dealing with on a daily basis. It is very, very immediate to us. So on that note, maybe just a one liner as to what would be your biggest pet peeve as a teacher. And it could be from anybody, it could be from your students, it could come from your administrators, or it could come from none of them, it could come from yourself also. But your pet peeve, or something that particularly annoys you, because it is a very difficult profession to do the same thing on a daily basis, day on day, maintaining the consistency, maintaining the quality, and repeating the same subject in different manners, in different techniques, and still keeping up with the times and the challenges that the environment throws at us. There can be several pet peeves that comes with every profession. It is important that we only understand what is it that lies with a teacher. Should we start with you, Jennifer, ma'am?
Yes, mine's kind of a silly one, but it's one that's come about in the past year and a half in this current climate. Students on a Zoom who do not have their cameras on and do not have their microphones on. So I don't know whether they're there or not, and I sometimes feel as if I'm talking to myself. That has definitely been a pet peeve and something that I've, moaned a lot about with my students. In fact, recently I've said to them, if your camera isn't on and I don't feel that you're engaged in the lesson, then I'm kicking you out of the Zoom.
True, of course. Couldn't agree more. Kuntal sir, I think he's given us a thumbs up. I don't know if this is what you actually also feel. So let's hear from you,
Yeah,
Kuntal
of
sir.
course. Yeah, we had a paradigm shift from the physical classes to the online classes, and I'm reminded of Isaac Asimov. He has foreseen that in his writing, in his science fiction, that in 2157 there will be no schools, everything will be in the house, there'll be supercomputer and all. And thanks to all this technological advancement, man has successfully metamorphosed himself into a machine. And as a teacher, we have forgotten how to write. Bad handwriting is one of the things that's really gets me off. Of course, my handwriting has also gone for a toss. All credit to this digitalization. Thank you. And I agree with Ma'am Jennifer.
Purnima ma'am.
I entirely agree with Jennifer and Kuntal. I think that is the greatest dampener when you're in a class and you don't see your students. The cameras are turned off, and as a consequence, you don't even uh, get quick enough responses. And I really think that is no way to be interacting in the classroom. I entirely agree with them.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. I think I would also want to add a reason why we've had this question in the list of questions is because it's important for us to understand that somebody who's working with these students on a daily basis, who's interacting with them as much as their family is, they tend to get used to certain traits of the students which may not be good. And what we've realized is, although that is something which is in the nature, because after a point in time, or our families or people who we're meeting on a daily basis, they tend to accept our flaws also. But regardless of that, these are certain things that do stand out, which is what goes to show that how important this is for any sort of human interaction, to be able to write in a manner which is clear enough, to be able to make sure that you're audible and visible, to be able to just make sure that you communicate with the right intent. So these are certain things which carries forward to their professional lives and becomes a pain thereat, because we as a corporate also are dealing with a lot of these issues, where it is difficult for us to make sure that everyone has their videos on, everyone is all the time involved and engaged. And these are certain traits that we feel that, including myself, we feel that all of this would have been, if it is taken care of well earlier on, because teachers say it enough and somewhere students don't take it as importantly. But it's important to know that this is not something that can be ignored. Even if the teachers are meeting them every day, even if they're trying to accept them hard with all their flaws, this is still something that bothers teachers, because it is something that is that has that element of bothering. So it shouldn't be carried forward to their professional lives. It shouldn't be something that you can cast it aside as okay. It needs to be kind of dealt with a lot of love, care and attention, getting them to understand the whys and what's about it. But it is something that needs addressing. So Priscilla ma'am, what about you? What do you think is the biggest peeve that you find as a teacher?
Srishti, if you allow me, I would want to answer this in two different ways. I want to
Please.
take it out of the box. I'm not sure if how if this is going to be palatable or how much am I agree.
Oh,
See,
please,
as
please
a
go.
profession, I've had every day. See, when I go out with my other friends who are not in the same profession, and they introduce me as a teacher, the first tone that I hear, "Oh, teacher, I thought you were an IT. I thought you were in, working for IBM or something of that sort." So teacher as a profession has been downplayed all the time, and that they think that, that teaching is very easy. All right. And, I would say it is, we are like doctors. We are dealing with human beings who change every day, every second, every hour, in fact. And we are not dealing with certain coded system where you sit and logically you change the code and then it happens bingo, and these IT professionals are placed much higher. But we are like doctors. We deal with human beings every day, and every hour is changing. When they come from one classroom to another classroom, the environment is different. You need to have a shift to understand. We deal with psyche, of mindset of these teenagers. And the moment you are introduced as a teacher, the profession is completely downplayed. And oh, it's a teacher. What do you do? Just take some content and just teach. And the teachers are being really, really downplayed, and that bothers me a lot. That is the greatest pet peeve, because teachers are supposed to be in the same platform as any other profession. So that is something that I really, want to address, and society needs to understand. And this conversation has to reach out, because I want to see a change where teachers are really placed in a better position as a profession, and not as a teacher. You know,
Right.
I don't want that tone again to be heard.
Right.
I hope
No,
the
please.
society hears me out. And I agree completely what my other panelists talked about video and everyday teaching as such. So what I did, I would like to share. So I would insist on them to switch on the video, and so one day, what I decided was I turn off my video and I started teaching them. Okay, I
Mhm.
started. So one day was fine, 2 days were fine. And the third day, the parent asked me, "We would love to see your lovely face. Why aren't you switching on your video?" I said, "Exactly. I also feel the same. I also wonder why I cannot see my students every day." So, there has been a complete change now, since the parents know and they see, hey, look, this is what happens when I'm seeing a blank screen. And if I don't see, this is what you see. So that has changed. Now everybody's on my videos. So yeah, that's it. That's my take.
Oh, lovely. And thank you so much, ma'am, for actually, just coming out, blunt with what is it that teachers actually face. This is so pertinent and such an important thing to have had brought forward, because no matter how much we say, teaching is not something which is easy, and to actually downplay a profession like that, I don't think it's their place. I don't think they do justice to doing something like this. And it is just this horrible notion that society has started to adopt, where they actually have bucketed certain professions over the others, which is ridiculous, to say the least. So I'm just so glad and thankful to you that you actually brought this up on behalf of all the teachers here and beyond. Rushik sir, what about you?
Ma'am, actually, when the last turn comes, I think nothing is left with us. That's what I believe. That Madam Jennifer has also rightly covered the point, which actually, as an educator, we all must be having as a pet peeve. Uh, Other than that, in my academic career, I have always see whenever we have become teacher, so we know that students, as I said, keep saying the first stakeholder. They are always the some of in each and every class there are some or the other pet peeves, because they always do mischief things, they always do naughty things, and that is their age, we do understand. But
Right.
at the same time, we it's our responsibility how to divert them and bring them back. So as a teacher, if you ask me, uh, there is no as such any pet peeve other than this technical glitches. And let me add on to it, even we also right now having live session, sometimes in between we are also keeping our camera off. Why? Because maybe some reason. Otherwise, I don't think so there is any other pet peeve for me. Yes.
Right. Great. Thank you so much, sir. We'll move on to the next question. External validation is something which everyone does require at some stage. It is very hard to say that one can go without validation. I want to understand if external validation affects you teachers in your overall performance, and if it does, then which is that external validation that really affects you? So it could come from any stakeholder. It could come from the students, the parents, the administrators, anybody, the principal. But it is important for us to know and understand, first and foremost, is external validation, does it have a direct impact on your performance, in a good way, in a bad way, whichever way. But also, going beyond, which is that stakeholder? It could be one stakeholder, multiple stakeholders, whose external validation is important to you as a teacher. So should we start with Purnima ma'am for this?
Uh, I feel the validation that matters most to me is when students recognize or acknowledge their, or they remember you, actually, to put it simply. So, teaching is not, the gratification is often not instant. And so, years later, when a student shares his university dissertation paper, ma'am, please have a look, or ma'am, my article's been published, please have a read. That is the most that I could ever ask for. And that I'm sure we get in plenty from our students. And that is what keeps us going. Because teaching, as we all agree, is not very easy, and to keep us as motivated day in, day out is difficult. Uh, so parental or managerial validation might have material consequences. And I don't think it compares anywhere. It comes anywhere close to the validation that uh, really appreciate, which is when it comes from a student years later even.
Mhm. Got it. Jennifer ma'am, how would you respond to this?
Yes, I entirely agree. At the end of the day, the only person who knows exactly what you're doing in your job on a daily basis are the students. Your administrators may observe you a couple of times a year, your colleagues may have some idea of what you're doing, but the only people who really know what you're doing are your students. Of course, they're the ones that see you daily. And so without a doubt, their validation is the most important. And knowing that they have gone away with a good experience, that is definitely the most important thing. Of course, it's on a personal level, it's also good to know that your colleagues or your administrators think you're doing a good job, but they're not the most important ones. It's the students that are the most important, for sure.
Rushik sir?
Yes, I might be going little different, probably because by listening my other co-panelists, what I feel as an external validation, external, right? Though that can include maybe students or parents or some other persons, but what I believe external validation, I will consider students, my administration, my principal, my vice principal, all of them, coordinators, parents, even I will consider them as my internal validation people only. But external validation, what I believe at times, I have incidents also with me. Like we organized in Podar International School, Ahmedabad, we organized a mathematical event, and that was including all the schools around Ahmedabad and surrounding states, surrounding cities. So what happened that when we organized that event, there were many schools who participated, and they were very well-known schools. Now, one fine day after few years, like say 4 or 5 years, after that, we got accidentally we got a call from one of the school who participated, and they acknowledged me because they got my number. So they told, sir, we remember that event and the event which which your school organized, and it was really wonderful. And we since then we are also following those things, and we are doing so good. And now we are inviting you for the same event and your school as well. So that is something is making us feel proud that something which you did, and such kind of outside person whom we even did not expect, at one fine day they are coming up and they are giving us this kind of acknowledgement to invite us as an judge of the event, we can say. So that is something called, in my language or in my understanding, that is external validation. Or maybe somebody is invited, like your institution has invited us in this prestigious discussion which is going on. This is external validation for me, because out of the across the nation I am selected. Okay, there is no examination which I had to give, but I am selected, and that is something which is a perfect example to say that this external validation, whether in terms of rewards in the sense some awards also we get, anything which comes from other people, third person. Remember, not I am not considering students, parents, or my administration, because they, for me, they are internal validation people, and they always constantly they matter for me. My administration also matters, because as we rightly said, somebody rightly said that we at the end required that kind of appreciation or acknowledgement, because of which our hard work which we are putting in every year is getting recognized. So administration, that is always there. Administration, I consider students, because whenever we are teaching, I am so happy, and I'm very fortunate that every year I get some of the students, lot of the students that always come up and say that, sir, we always wish to study with you because of such interesting things or stories or some facts. At the time even I am playing with them, because we need to understand their situation, that every time they cannot study constantly, we also cannot study. This lecture or this event, if it is going to go beyond 4 hours, I'm damn sure one by one every one of us will be left out.
True.
So yes, that internal validation we always get, but external validation matters a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming out with those, honest inputs, because it's important for us also to understand where we are faulting in providing the best support to all our teachers. Kuntal sir, what about you?
Well, Srishti, I must thank you for coming up with this question, rather you remind me of one of my favorite writer, George Bernard Shaw. And in one of his essay, In the Days of My Youth, uh, he has mentioned that it's human nature to present ourselves in the Sunday attire, in the best attire, because it's human nature that we love self-appraisal, we love appreciation. So it's no harm that, yes, of course, as teachers, we also require a pat at the back. Okay, so yes, appreciation, sir. As Ma'am Purnima was telling, few days back, one of my students, okay, of Easter years, Sakshi Chandak from Ashok Hall Girls Residential School, she wrote a letter to me and she's mentioned over there, Sir, see, I remember you told us that in written English, no contracted form should be used. And I've not used anything. That's only meant for spoken English. Yeah, I remember that. That's a validation. Okay. Or maybe one of my students calling up from Canada and telling that, Sir, I have learned and since a lot since then, but still I remember you. Okay, that this makes us feel that yes, we have done something, and I keep on moving with the boys to different debates and all such circuits. Once I was there at Sindhya School, they were organizing the Platinum Jubilee Memorial Debate and all. So one of their best debater was Pranav Darshan. So he sat with me. We were discussing. He was from Sindhya school. He was not from our school, not from Mayo College. So Pranav Darshan sat with me. We were discussing on a particular topic like should this like the whistleblowers, shall we stop these whistleblowers or should they be prosecuted? Okay, they use the term Dexter Morgan, like the whether like vigilante should be prosecuted and not. So we had a long discussion on that. And one fine evening, I was about to catch my flight from Indira Gandhi International Airport going back to Kolkata. I find somebody calling me, sir, sir. And I turned and I saw Pranav Darshan running to give me a hug. Sir, you are here? I was just missing you. That's the external validation, I think. Okay, what else a teacher can look for? That makes us think what we have today.
Wow,
Thank you.
that is so wonderfully put. Priscilla, ma'am?
Absolutely agree with everyone who said the external validation for us is important, and I think it is from a student. Look, like when I teach my subject, when I'm buying a product, the ultimate satisfaction, who's getting it? The customer, the consumer who consumes it. Okay, and
True.
even if anybody is saying, "Hey, this product is pretty good," if the consumer say, hey, I've been using it really sucks, it's bad, so I think it is a student that really, because we as teachers reflect every day. I'm sure all of you agree, we reflect end of the day, how has been our class, how's been my day, the student was left out, why did the student ask me this, or why did every time, so this bothers us, we are constantly thinking and reflecting. So if I receive a text message from a student, Miss, can I talk to you? Because I think you're the only one that I can reach out at this moment. And if I have an alumni who have left 5 years ago, call me and say, hey, Miss, I call you because you're the only one I could reach out at this minute. And that validation is extreme motivation, I would say. At you reach a point where you say, I value my job, I'm very passionate, and it helps me to continue being a teacher, even though the role as a teacher is downplayed by the society. That keeps me going. So yes, students are definitely my external validation. Yes.
Thank you so much for that, ma'am. On a note of validation, I think I would want to know how much do you hold yourselves valid? Because I think teachers do an exemplary job, but somewhere they don't tend to feel that they are doing enough. And this is just something that we want to discuss on a lighter note to be able to bring to the larger teachers community that this is not that, this is how all teachers together think of themselves as. I really hope I get to hear 10 on 10 answers in the next question when I'm going to ask you as a teacher, what do you think yourself as? But it's very, very unfortunate that our 100 on 10 teachers are not being able to, take that, prize. And somewhere they hold themselves back when it comes to actually acknowledging the fact that they have done an exemplary job. They have, touched the lives in manners that, a number or, just that 100% is also not enough. So this is just on a lighter note, just to understand, because I think a lot of teachers will be watching this, And this is one question where they will draw a lot of empathy from, because they struggle with this. They feel that they always tend to blame themselves up and about in terms of how much or how little can we do to be able to make sure that our students are somewhat more happier than what they already are. Rushik sir, would you like to go first? You
Yes, ma'am.
had some.
Actually, frankly speaking, every time getting last answer is not fair. So I thought, let me give
Absolutely.
10 on 10 to myself first. So
Yes, please.
yes, of course, I will. I will give 10 on 10 to myself. Yes, why? There is a reason. Because in my journey of this, as a student, I am keeping it aside. But as a teacher or as an educator, when I am sitting back and relaxing myself and thinking, I'm really feeling that I'm so obliged to be in this noble profession, and I have rightly chosen this profession, not by choice. It is my passion. It is not multiple choice option which I selected. So why I'm considering, because it has taught me a lot. It has given me a lot of respect and everything. So why I consider 10 on 10 is because yes, there is something in me because of which I am getting that lot of respect from the students, parents, and even my administration. So yes, I do consider myself to be 10 on 10.
Right. Thank you so much for that, sir. I think you've set the tone. And all the teachers here, I'm sure they will have a lot of interesting answers. Let's hear what Kuntal sir has to say.
Well, I'll start off with this. Like, an ounce of experience is greater than tons of theories. And since I have managed to get some experience, some sort, not much, 26 years of experience down the line, well, I'll try to keep myself on the upper rung of the ladder. Okay. If not 10 on 10, somewhere near 9, 9.5, 9.8. Why I leave some gap over there? Because it reminds me of Robert Browning. Why all men strives, who succeeds? If I get a 10 on 10, I'll be a finished and finite thought. And I believe in Kaizen. That is, every microsecond should be utilized to the attainment of perfection. And that pursuit of perfection should be there. If it dies, I'll also die. So even the Greek hero Ulysses said, no, that in search of knowledge, to follow knowledge like a sinking star, he said that one life is not enough to acquire all the knowledge. Life piled after life. So likewise, one life is not enough to, even as a teacher also, to acquire all the knowledge. Because while we are teaching, the other day also I was sharing with you, I'm trying to teach for last 26 years because I'm learning in the process. Getting enriched in the process. So I would mark myself 9 point some decimals, and I leave it to my students to decide. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer, ma'am.
I've always been the kind of person who is extremely self-critical, and probably too self-critical at times. My family will certainly agree with that. So I was thinking more along 7 or 8 out of 10. I guess maybe I'm a little bit higher, really. When it comes to the validation aspect, I've certainly had a lot of great validation from my students over the years. But I do also agree that I think that there's always room for improvement. We can always grow and develop as human beings and as educators. So it would be difficult to ever say 10 for me, because that implies some kind of finished product. And I'm not sure if, as a teacher, there ever is a finished product, because I think that, we have different students all the time. We have, the systems change. We have a lot to learn, and we can continue to grow. And I think as well as if you send a message to your students that you think you are a finished product, that kind of goes against a growth mindset for students. And I think that they need to know that, you can always grow and you can always develop, and you're not set in stone. There's always a room for change. We're made of clay, not stone.
Lovely. That is just so beautifully put. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Please, Priscilla, ma'am, tell us what would be your response to this.
When I see the word rate, I really don't like to quantify our work, because every day,
Absolutely.
every year, we are self-appraisal. We are doing our self-appraisals and giving those figures. However,
Right.
since you have put that question,
Right.
I am very self-critical like Jennifer is. I really, I'm very critical for my own thinking. Even though I get results and the students are always validating me, somewhere I still feel, that I cannot reach. I've not reached the max, and we still need to grow. And since education is very progressive, so we cannot say, today it is like complete 100%. No, we cannot never say that. So there's always room for growth and learning. So hence, yeah, I always would put it in a scale of 7 or 8. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Purnima, ma'am.
Um, yeah, it's one of the most difficult questions I've faced. Of course, we do self-appraisals and all, but
Right.
in terms of the larger picture, it's as difficult as if you ask me to rate myself as a breather. How well do I breathe? Well, I breathe
True,
because I need
true.
to live, right? So it's very difficult, but
Hmm.
again, I agree with my colleagues here, Priscilla and Jennifer and Kuntal. Uh, I I don't think uh, my learning has stopped or my being able to do a better job of my being a teacher has stopped. So there's always that room to do better, and therefore I wouldn't rate myself as a 10. I think I have quite some way to go, and I'd rate myself at a 7 or an 8.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think it's important for everyone out there to know that these are phenomenal teachers, and to kind of give a number to yourself is not something that can be hold to hooks, and none of these numbers could ever actually be set in stone, because at the end of it they are trying, and this is something which is a measure of everything beyond just a number of what they've achieved, because they're trying hard on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and we have personally seen the profiles of these teachers and heard from their schools and students, and we've understood just about how much they put into the learning and growth and the education of their students, and to make sure that each day is better than the previous one. And I think that supersedes everything else, just this intent of making sure that you try and better and better, regardless of whether you're at 10 or you're not at 10, but they're still striving to make sure that there is still room for improvement, or they still do better and they still do more every passing day. But I think it's also important to know that teachers need to know that they have done enough and they have done incredibly well. I am a very self-critical person, so I couldn't agree more when Jennifer ma'am said what she did. But it is also important to somewhere appreciate yourselves and know that we've come a long way as educators, and I don't speak for myself here. I mean for the teacher community, because I'm not anywhere close to the experience that all of you are. So I think for all your experience and all the wonderful things that you've put in, it is only just a very very not important sort of measure, but it is just to understand how important we as teachers, we as a community need to appreciate teachers day in day out. Which brings me to the next question. Three stakeholders who you think would have a direct impact on your performance as a teacher. Um, we do not need much clarification on these stakeholders as to how or how not. In case if you feel like adding in, some sort of inputs, that is going to be completely your call. This could be as objective as it gets. Just three stakeholders who would have a direct impact on your performance as a teacher. We'll start with Rushik sir on this one.
Thank you once again for giving me opportunity first. Uh, yes, I would definitely list out those three stakeholders. And as I kept saying in my earlier two questions, my first stakeholders are always students, because
Right.
students are, as somebody used the direct something customer. Yes, they are the direct customers with whom we are dealing. Stakeholder is a better word. So they are the stakeholder, first stakeholders with whom we are dealing. So at the beginning of the day or end of the day, because of the students, we are getting either motivated, or we learn from them, or we get better picture that next what I am supposed to do, where am I lagging, so that I can rectify, or I can come up with some best ideas other than this. Okay, so that is my first stakeholders. Now immediately after teaching, we come out of the class, and we definitely approach, according to me, we definitely approach directly to our colleagues. Okay, that means I can say school co-teachers, right? So school administrative, school teachers, our teachers. So according to me, they are the second one, because immediately we go to them in the staff room, we discuss with them, we even suppose we are teaching in the common classes or not, we share with each other, we again feel relaxed, and we again share ideas, we come out with that situation, and then we go back with another energy. And lastly, the third stakeholders according to me is my administration, because
Mhm.
when these two stakeholders have very well helped me after teaching also, and my problems means solving my problems also, giving nice ideas also, at the end my ideas, my methodologies and everything is getting recognized by my administration. So school administration comes the third stakeholder as per me. So these are the three stakeholders according to me. Of course, I am not forgetting parents here, because as and when in between our academic sessions, we definitely be in contact with parents as a stakeholders. They we do conduct PTMs, but still I will consider them after these three stakeholders.
Kuntal sir?
Yeah, I will also agree. I will second what Mr. Rusik was telling. Yes, first stakeholders are our students, and second, of course, I'll put the parents and the school authority. These are the three stakeholders. I would put to the order that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Purnima ma'am?
Like everybody else, I think the most important stakeholders are students. The second, I'd agree with Rushik sir. Uh, the colleagues, we are part of a team together, and they play a very, very important role in our own performances. And third would be those who give us feedback. They may or may not be part of the administration, but definitely those within the community who give us feedback, whether it be the parents or it be somebody, say, just senior to me, uh, which is very valuable for our own improvement and for us to be able to go ahead and also often feel validated. Those are the three most important stakeholders.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Priscilla ma'am?
In lieu with my objectives, I think students, yes, number one. Second would be parents. And the third would be the school authority. In order, these are what I.
Jennifer ma'am?
As everybody else has said, students for sure are number one. I think my fellow teachers, my colleagues, the team I work with are number two. And then I would probably put parents and administrators, that being the vice principal, principal, and so on, would be kind of a joint third for me.
Okay. Thank you so much. On that note, we can move ahead with our next question. As a teacher, what is the one thing that you feel, if given, it would help you do much better than what you already are right now? So, as a teacher, if there is something that you feel that if were given to you, it could be anything. I'm not going to define this. It could be just absolutely anything under the sun that you feel, if this were something that was given to you, it would help you perform much better than what you already are. Should we start with you, Priscilla ma'am?
Well, I don't know if if anyone could give me, and I would take time. If one thing they would give me is time, if they give me more time, I think I would perform better. Simple
Right.
said. Yeah.
Right. What about you, Jennifer ma'am?
I was about to say exactly the same thing.
Same,
Time.
yes. I saw a lot of thumbs up on this.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is going to be very
I think
common.
it's time, or anything that enables us to be more time efficient, because obviously nobody can actually physically give us time, other
Right.
than, you know, cutting our timetables in half. But I think anything that will allow us to be more time efficient, any kind of system in place or something like that that allows us to be more time efficient. But yeah, time is definitely the number one.
I think this is, I'm just so glad that you actually mentioned that a system that enables you to be more time efficient, as opposed to hoping for a system that actually, reduces the burden, because that is also very misconstrued, where everyone, is assumes that the schools are bogged down by a huge syllabus, which may or may not be true. But I think more than blaming the volume, it is also about efficiency that needs to be brought about. So the systems need to become more efficient, as opposed to something which is more minuscule in nature. They need not necessarily cut down on their scope, but if they can actually come up with ways and means to make the efficiency go up, and make it more conducive to teachers to be able to utilize that engagement period, I think that's what will take care of everything. Kuntal sir, I believe you also had a similar response to this, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. The greatest of all resources is time. Yeah, we cannot just, no denying of the fact. I would just like to draw our attention. Maybe 2 decades back, when I when I embarked on this path, in this journey of teaching profession. Okay, that time, yes, of course, time was there. The main problem with us was accessing resource. I myself was member of the National Library Calcutta. I myself was the member of American Express Library, as well as the State and Central Library in Vidhannagar. But apart from the other libraries also. But then if we need to like go and access certain resource, you need to go to the library, go and settle down over there. But present day, the vast expanse of this digital world, the digital media, at the click of a mouse, we can get access to anything, from everything to anything. So that has solved some problem of our time. That has made us better. And secondly, I would rather suggest that I'm blessed to be at Mayo College. What I am today is mostly goes to the credit goes to Mayo College, because Mayo College has provided us with a very liberal environment where we can go and do some research every day. I have no limitations to my mode of teaching. I can resort to any modus operandi. I can do like experiments, research with my teaching, and the college is going to support me with all sort of things. Even we go for the teacher exchange programs also. I'm lucky to be to Hutchinson College Lahore on a teacher exchange program. I've seen their methodology. All these small things have added on, okay, and sharpened me. And the last but not the least, our director, General Kulkarni, always keep on telling us that you should achieve not 100% beyond that, because the day we aim excellence, then only we get excellence. Otherwise, we cannot get excellence. Okay, so that's how these are certain things. All these taken together, it's a package that makes me what I am today. Okay, that's all I would like to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Purnima, ma'am?
Well, like everybody else, uh, if there's one thing that I could have more of, would be time. If somebody could throw more lifelines rather than deadlines at teachers, that would be very gratifying. Yeah, that's the one thing that I'd ask for most.
That's so wonderfully coined. It is so important. We rarely hear of a word called lifeline in the school setup, but it's always about deadlines. So thank you so much for bringing that. I hope it catches the jargons of a lot of people and enters the lexicon of various schools, and eventually brings you the lifelines that is so needed. Rushik sir?
Yes, I will agree with three of the parallels. The time, which is very, though it is not, we cannot buy time, but still, I wish somebody can give time to all the teachers, then we can do much more better than what we are. So, of course, time.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for all that, all those wonderful interpretations of. Although the answer was similar, but I think the interpretations were so vivid and so beautiful and so different from one another. I think this is something that I'm definitely taking with me. My next question would be: have you found yourself in a situation where you weren't in agreement with the management about a certain decision, which had a direct impact on the quality of education for students. So there are often times when teachers tend to be at loggerheads because the management wants certain things which are different for whatever XYZ reasons, which is obviously not, understandable or to a teacher, and they feel that this is not something I could be in agreement with because they feel that no, I believe otherwise or I think otherwise, and I feel that this is something which is important for the students for their quality of education. So, has there been a situation like that, first and foremost, and how have you reacted uh, to a situation like this? So, I think we'll start with Kuntal, sir, if you can let us know what you think of this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Shrishti, for putting up this question. The thing is that, yes, at Mayo College, I'm really, again, I'd say I'm blessed because we never had such situations because we have loads of liberty to work on. I'll
Right.
go down, I'll go down in the memory lane into my Easter years, maybe 2009 or 2010. I was teaching in Ashok Hall Girls Residential School, which is situated in a picturesque, beautiful hamlet 14 kilometers uphill from Kumaon Regimental Center in Ranikhet. So, and the schools of the hills, they have a different time period, okay, the different calendar. So it was the last week or maybe the third week of January. We were into our winter coaching camps going on, and I used to teach class 12 as well as I had class 10 that time. So the students were all cocked up like we were with them, and it was biting cold. Mind you, the temperature, the mercury level stoops down. And all of a sudden, one day, some lady comes from Calcutta office because the Ashok Hall school belongs to the Birla Education Trust. So a lady comes from there, counselor, and she gives an assignment to every teacher that within 2 days you need to submit a PowerPoint presentation on what are the methodology you are applying to upscale the results in the forthcoming board exam. Most of the teachers in the staff room had very grumpy faces, but they all got into doing that. I said, sorry, I'm not doing it. So I was called at the principal's office. The then principal, I don't want to take the name, she was there, but she was quite supportive. And one of the official from Calcutta was also there, and some other people, senior functionaries. They asked me, when the enter school can do it, why can't you? I said, sir, just keep outside. There's a girl sitting over there waiting for me to explain to him slave's dream. There are some underachievers who are waiting for me for some remedial classes so that I can help them out with that. There was a particular group of students who were intrigued by the question whether Lady Macbeth can be treated as the fourth witch, or maybe whether the juxtaposition of the interplay, how it has come up from the opening scene. Fair is foul, foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. So, shall I address that first, or shall I sit down and do this thing? I'm not telling, I'm not undermining that whatever you're doing is wrong, but the timing is wrong. You should have done this exercise at the beginning of an academic year so that ask the teacher, what are your plans? How are you going to upscale your students' performance? That, and then they should have planned it out. But at the time when the exams are not knocking, banging at the door, I cannot spend a single moment into any other trivial things apart from my students. That's what it is. So they agreed. The principal also agreed. She said, okay, fine. Whatever you're doing, these are the things what we want. But okay, if you don't have time to, again, the question of time comes in. If you don't have time to like jot them down into a PowerPoint presentation, just give me in writing. I said, okay, that will be done, but after 2 days, not now. And even it cannot be after 2 days, it can be after a week also. Okay. So that was one instant. And another was at Vidyadevi Jindal School, Hisar. So I was in charge of the language lab. Okay. So the teachers were told that this time the formative assessment will be based on simply on listening skills. Now I objected. In a class, we have auditory learners, visual learners, kinesthetic learners. So a learner who is a visual learner or a kinesthetic learner, how am I going to test that child if my entire assessment is on listening skills? So based on the language lab. So I objected. But then the principal also again over there, she understood, she agreed to it. But these are the two instances I thought that I would put it across. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing such important experiences. I think it's important for us also to learn from here that it's important to voice what we actually feel, because it's important to bring it up to the knowledge of people, and there should be an environment, just like the schools that you've mentioned, that there always should be, an environment created in all schools where everyone has an equal opportunity to bring in their perspectives, no matter how diverse, no matter how digressing, and how much they disagree to the topic at hand. It's important to hear everyone out and take the best decision forward, because at the end of it, teachers are more hands on, they're more closer to the students, and they know the ground level reality. So it's important to have them speak on these issues and give their perspectives, then of course take a decision jointly in the best interest of everyone. So that is something which I do feel is important. And another very important thing is teachers come up with their personal experiences. They don't speak for a community, because they're just trying to make a change at their level. Often they're misconstrued as being a voice for the entire teaching community, which is also something one must understand, that if one teacher is acceptable to a certain thing, it may not be applicable to another teacher, and they both must be treated with immense respect, and they both must be equally heard and included in whatever the decision making that takes place. Jennifer, ma'am, I would want your response to this situation, if you've come across any.
Yeah, there are a couple of situations that I think come to mind, and they both sort of run along a similar theme, where I have felt that the well-being of members of the school community had not been considered, whether that's be student well-being or staff well-being. My first example, many years ago, one of the first school I worked in, there sadly was a death of one of the students in the school. She died, and the head at the time probably didn't really quite know how to handle the situation, but very much was trying to kind of brush it under the carpet and get on with the new year and almost pretend that it hadn't happened. And she was not really considering the well-being of the students, I personally felt. A lot of them were kind of voicing their concerns about the fact that the death of this student was not being discussed, that there wasn't really any counselling offered. And I kind of got myself into a little bit of trouble in that particular position, because I sided with the students and I ended up being a kind of mediator between, the voice of the students and their concerns and how they felt emotionally, and how they wanted to show their respects and how they wanted to remember this particular student that had died. And I had to arrange meetings with the head and, discuss this and so on. And then, so really it was the lack of consideration of well-being that was impacting their learning, because obviously they were all grieving. And on a complete sort of different note, but a similar idea of the well-being not being considered, was a job that I accepted a few years back. And none of these situations are in my current school, I will add, where it was a new school, a new job, a new country, and I began my teaching job, and I just seemed to be rushing around and so busy and never having a chance to breathe. And then I suddenly discovered that I actually was teaching more classes than anybody else, and I had a bigger timetable. I couldn't really understand why and what had happened. And so I went to the head, and I was told, oh yes, you do have a bigger timetable than everybody else, but we're paying you for it. We've given you overtime in your salary. And I remember thinking, but you never asked me. At no point was this conversation had of, would you mind having a greater teaching load? We will be, paying you for this. And so, it goes back to our conversation about time. I said, well, I don't want that. I was never asked if that would be okay. And I don't want that. I want the same timetable as everybody else, because it was affecting my well-being as a mother, as a teacher. I then didn't have enough time for my students, for my family. So I think issues with well-being in general are ones that I've had problems with personally, or as I said, with the students in the past, that I think, have been the main concern, that, how management deals with the well-being of the community.
First and foremost, ma'am, I would like to thank you so much for, being so open about your experiences. I must say this is extremely courageous, and it's wonderful for us to actually note this and learn from you, not just from the experiences and how you responded to it and how you actually had gone through the situation with a lot of dignity and with a tremendous amount of showcase or exuberance of respect. But at the same time, it's also important to be able to come forth and let people know that this is what you've actually had. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being so supportive and for agreeing to share your experiences with us today, because this is something which we're definitely going to learn and take with us, go a long way. I'm going to have to move on to the next question. um, so very quickly, we are going to understand what would be described as your school's approach towards adopting new mechanisms, be it tech or non-tech, for improved teaching methods. As now, this is an important question for us because we as an organization, we've always been struggling to just be able to get ourselves heard by the management, even before knowing who we really are and what we really have to offer. And we don't blame them because there is so much that they're already dealing with. There's so many organizations approaching them, so many products out there and things like that. But then we've also realized that there is this closeness in several institutions who would just not be willing to hear us out or hear any of the other organizations out, who are genuinely coming from a place of trying to make the education a much better place, who are trying to solve problems and remove the issues that teachers, students, or parents are struggling with on a daily basis. So, how would you describe your school's approach to adopt technology or non technology, just a whole new product, which is eventually aimed at improving teaching methods? If you could just pick out a few examples of schools which would be very open to it, they would be would totally try it and work to genuinely acquire and learn it, as to being cautious, but yes, they would be willing to test it on a sample, or having a closed approach, which is also, of course, very totally understandable, because a lot of schools try to be very protective about their people, which is completely understandable, and they don't want to expose them to things which is out there. There are just too many commercial things out there. And then you have any other approach, if any. So if we can just have a quick answer on this, we will start with Purnima ma'am.
I think at Doon, the environment is extremely supportive of any suggestions for improvement or acquiring improved technology, improved methods. And in that, everybody's inputs and opinions are considered before. I mean, it's not like rushing in, but taking a very informed, well supported decision.
Got it. Priscilla ma'am.
Uh, I'd say at Trio, they're very open to it, and we can walk into any time of the day, and you come, because my classes are very chaotic at sometimes, because every day I have some activity, but I have never had an opportunity where I was stopped and say, "Hey, what's going on?" So I really think they're very open to it and embrace anything new, and I'm very blessed to be in Trio. Yeah.
Right. Kuntal sir.
I also voiced with my predecessors, my colleagues over here, yeah, Purnima ma'am and Priscilla ma'am. Yes, I'm very open to it because we would like to give a try to anything. At Mayo, as I said, I reiterate, we have a very liberal and very open setup over here.
Right.
True.
Jennifer ma'am, your response to this?
Yes, I would also say very open to it. I think at Stonehill in particular, over the last 18 months, with the pandemic, we've had a lot of discussions with teachers where we've been trying all sorts of new apps and platforms and technology. And, we've had times when we've shared what we thought works. And I think often when it comes from the teachers who are actively using it, administrators are more likely to say yes, because if you can say, look, I've tried this and it's really useful. And we've even had teachers kind of run workshops with a new platform or app that they've discovered, and try it out with us, and we all sort of said, oh yeah, that's a really good one, let's go with that. So yeah, definitely very open to it. Yeah.
Rushit sir, your response to this?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I would like to say that I'm audible.
Yes sir.
Yes, so I would like to go with the option that we definitely every technical or mechanical application or online stuffs we get, portal we are ready to adopt it on the basis of getting a useful result.
Right.
So we are cautious. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are.
Yeah. So we are cautious about it, but we definitely will like to test it on a sample before deciding.
Right, that is helpful. So, because these are, this is what I think schools in general look at. There are a lot of schools in the country, and I think this was more to understand whether what is really a right approach to something of this nature. So, when we have some of the best schools in the country, I think they would prefer to choose a very open route. Although this is a never ending debate, because there is none of these answers is a better answer than the other, because all of them are more towards making sure that the students get the maximum, or get most benefited out of it, whichever approach they seek. But at the end of it, it's important to also learn and understand how schools think and why they think the way they do. So thank you so much for this answer. We will move ahead and move on to the next question that we have. The next question that we have is, how centralized do you think a school should be and why? So we'll start with Jennifer, ma'am.
I think that you need to be very careful if a school becomes too centralized, because the world is becoming more and more open, and I think from what I've heard, it seems like most of us teach in IB schools anyway. We teach the International Baccalaureate, therefore we're kind of the complete opposite of that. We are very much part of an organization that is about global citizens and being open-minded, and therefore I think there are a lot of dangers with being too centralized. I think that you kind of end up sort of becoming stuck in the kind of systems and traditions of your school, and not open to new ideas and not open to what the rest of the world is doing. So I don't think schools should be very centralized at all, to be honest.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Purnima, ma'am.
Dune is characterized by, being absolutely democratic. So at every level, we have students participating, we have teachers participating, we have various stakeholders participating. Of course, in a daily transaction of school affairs, parents are not involved, but uh, we have representation and participation from every stakeholder in the day-to-day running, and so I think that is what gives Dune its strength. And if people have recognized this uh, as a very good school, then I should say that centralization really uh, does not play a role in making a school great. In fact, it's the other way around. The more decentralization, the more democratic the systems are in the institution, the better, the more likely that institution is to flourish.
Thank you so much for that, ma'am. I think that is a very, very wonderful perspective. And thank you so much, Jennifer, ma'am, for your take on that. We'll move ahead with the next question. One thing that you would do if you were in a position of supreme authority at your school. Now, this is something which we want to understand, that there are a lot of things that teachers observe and a lot of things that they actually feel is important to take to. But given the nature of their work, given what the fact that there's people who are working on a more hands-on basis with the students, they don't come to the different side of the picture as the authority behind taking the important decisions in a lot of situations and a lot of times. So let's hear from some of our teachers, what is that one thing that they would do if they were in a position of supreme authority at their school. Should we start with you, Kuntal, sir?
Why not, Srishti? Thank you. Okay, first and foremost thing, I would like to remove the culture of supervision. Okay, I would like to build an ambience of trust. Secondly, what I would like to do is I would collaborate with the government and make it mandatory for students of class 9 to 12, because as per the new education policy now, 2020, we have classes 9 to 12 are in the senior bracket. So for these students, I would like to make a mandatory internship in hospitals, in armed forces, and in different public places, so that they understand what is the value of public service in schools like Mayo, Doom, and other, like you can say Delhi College, India, and all. So these students mostly come from a very elite background. They fail to understand the why the concept of these frontline workers that we are speaking of these days. What takes to put in such effort, that they need to, as I said before also, that I want to make my students a good human being. So for that reason, the first step they take is that they need to value the and respect the work of others also, particularly the public services. So that's what I would like to do. And of course, community services should be a compulsory things. Then rest other things are all there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so, so much. Jennifer, ma'am?
Yes, I think if I was in a position of supreme authority, I like that wording. For me, it would be about well-being. It would be about mindfulness and well-being, and I would love to create a culture of a culture in the school where this is not seen as a sort of additional or an extracurricular, or you can join the yoga club. It would actually become a core part of the culture of the school, because I think, especially in the past year and a half, all of us will have seen issues where the mental health of students have been hugely impacted by the pandemic. It's something I feel quite strongly about, and I think that addressing mental health issues and helping students find ways where they can maintain a more healthy mental and physical well-being is absolutely essential in the world we live in today. So I would make it part of the school day every day.
Thank you so much for these wonderful inputs. We will move on with the next question. This is something which where we've had students from multiple premium schools on their take about some of the things that they find particularly inconveniencing in the education system. Now, they're from various schools. They just spoke about their experiences, because we as an organization, one of the stakeholders that we always love to work with are children, because also to feel how irrelevant we are and how much we need to grow and learn, and where we actually stand at. And sometimes it helps us a lot in bringing down to where we ought to be. And also because they are the ones, as has been mentioned here, they're the stakeholders who really are the final users of the educational products, the people who are actually imbibing all that we have for them. So they have expressed certain concerns, and I'm so grateful to all of you today to be able to allow us to ask you these concerns upfront and blunt, because this is something that's going to be very, very important for us to learn. Not just us as an organization, but everyone in the education system. So I'm going to go ahead with the first one. This was put out by one of the students, who mentioned that the teacher-student ratio is so skewed that it is just not possible for a teacher to attend to all our needs with adequate attention. I would throw this open to the House and request you to respond as you please. This is something, I would request you to go ahead and go forth and put in your points. So if should you want to respond, if you can just signal to me, and I will start with you. So Kuntal sir, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, I do agree that at Mayo College, the student-teacher ratio is 1:25 maximum. So that's not a problem for us as such. I understand. But when it is like a day school where we have the occupancy is quite high, on the higher side, maybe 50 students in a section. So definitely it's a problem. A teacher is a human being. He's not a superhuman. Okay. So it's not feasible for a teacher to pay full attention to all the children. So now, first thing in that case, what can be done? If we can change the layout of the class, what we see the primitive system is still going on in most of the schools. So what have seen, like the teacher is the ruler and the students are the be ruled, and they are all facing the teacher in one way. Why that way? Why can't we make it like a U-shaped, something like a conference, so that the teacher has the access and reach out to every student at the same time? Okay, of course, you could say the space is a constraint. In that case, we require a bigger classroom. Or else, if not, in the digital media, we have that concept of breakout rooms. So we are breaking out students. So why not divide them heterogeneously as per their merit into small groups and then promote peer learning and collaborative learning? Okay, in that case, we are doing both. We can pay attention to each group at a time. At the same time, there's a collaborative learning, teamwork taking place. So we are addressing to their 21st century skills also, like communications, collaboration, critical thinking, and so on. Okay, creativity also. So that's what I think can be an option.
Right. Thank you so much for your inputs. Would there be anyone else who would want to go ahead with this? Otherwise, we can move to the next response. Okay, so I think Kuntal sir has spoken for most of our teachers, which is has given us very innovative techniques that we can actually apply to be able to work around this teacher-student ratio that we actually struggle with at all times. Moving forward, the next concern that the students put out was analytical subjects like science and maths are always a struggle. Why is it that the students perceive these subjects as a struggle? Yes, Rushik sir. I think nobody better than you to take this.
I'm sorry, in between I was having network
So we
issues.
cannot hear you.
Yes, I was
Yes, sir.
audible.
Uh, no, I'm afraid not. There is a disturbance in the voice.
Is it, is it clear now?
It's lowly audible. So how about you try and say it in case I'm going to try and repeat it for the rest of them in case if it's necessary. So no, this is we're not going to be audible. We're not audible at all here. So just a couple of minutes back, I think that was a lot more. Yes, so your video is fine.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll wait for so meanwhile, would you have anybody else to respond to that? Yes, Kuntal, please do go ahead.
Okay. So again, at Mayo, we use our verdant and sprawling campus as a classroom. We have taken education out of the four walls of the classroom into our campus. So, though I'm not a science teacher, but my science teacher, my mathematics teacher will be better off to answer this. But what I've seen my maths teacher taking the boys to our SMS polo ground, and there's a particular, you can say, gallery over there, a stadium over there. They're measuring Pythagoras theorem using that thing. I've seen the students learning mensuration, measuring the shape of the tiles and shape of the marble of our main building, the heritage building, and that's how they're learning. We have an aviary. The biology teacher has taken the students over there to teach them the animal life, okay, the bird's life. They take them to the Mayo Lake to teach them the different concepts. So that's how that can the study can be made fun that way instead of making it too boring in the classroom. That's, I think, that can be one of the options. And of course, no, who's better than nobody is better than Rushik sir to answer that. But unfortunately, his audio is a problem. He can write it down at the chat box. You can read it out then.
Yes, sir. Rushik sir, do we have the audio?
Am I audible now?
Right. I think we'll have to.
Am I audible?
Okay, I think we'll have to move ahead because we're running short of time. But we would love to hear more from Rushik sir. especially after the wonderful technique that he's already told us about. So I think some of those techniques is what we could actually consider using for all the times it's been a struggle. The reasons why we are bringing these pointers across is because it's important for us to know that this is what the perception is. No matter what the reality is, it's also important to never undermine what the perception is. So if we feel that yes, the teacher student ratio is appropriate, but if a student tomorrow is feeling that no, it's not, and there is still lack of attention, then I think somewhere we as an institution, all of us stakeholders must take to it. So that is something which is very, very important. But of course there are enough and more ways to deal with this, and there are a lot of schools, especially the teachers here with us today, who are tackling this in a phenomenal way. And we would really love to know some more of these takes so that we can apply it to the lives across our country and beyond. Moving forward, teachers don't realize that we are trying tricks because the class is not fun. They think it is something we do because it is who we are, which is not true. I wish they understood this. So we realized that there were a couple of times when students felt that teachers were not being able to empathize with them. Of course, it's not for, it's not directed to any teacher, but we're just trying to understand the why behind why such things actually happen, or why is it that students perceive in a manner that may not be the case also. So let's hear from you, Jennifer ma'am, as to how we can respond to this.
I think there are two points I would like to make. First of all, I remember however many years ago it is now, 18 years ago, when I was doing my teacher training back in the UK, as part of behaviour management, we were very much encouraged to realise that, bad behaviour from a student isn't necessarily a reflection on them. It is often a reflection on your teaching. If they are bored, then they're more likely to misbehave and mess around and play tricks or whatever it might be. But that is down to the teacher. So, if your lessons are engaging and your lessons are fun, you're going to have better behavior from the students, which is obviously, as I said right at the beginning of this session, but always been an aim for me. So I rarely have any issues because I try to make sure that the lessons are engaging and fun at all times. But then there's also another point that I think Miss Priscilla made about, we all like to have a joke at times, and we all like to have a little bit of fun because we are human beings. And I think as well, making sure that you have a good relationship with the students and that they are clear where those boundaries are means that at times it is fine to do that. Even on Zooms, that I have one class that I teach, and you could always rely on one particular student. Every time we had a Zoom, he'd have found some kind of strange, weird and wonderful filter. So he would arrive in the lesson and, he'd have some filter on, and he would have a hat on, or he would be a cat, or, different characters and animals. And I liked it and I encouraged it. And he actually said to me, oh, some teachers tell me to turn off my filters. And I said, no, because it adds a bit of life to our, difficult, challenging situation that we're in. Manas and his filters became famous because it was fun to know what he was going to come up with next. And we even ended up as a department discussing, why can't we set a challenge for the students of, what's the most creative Zoom background you can come up with? And he is the kind of character in the classroom, very capable student who would, like to crack a joke and have a bit of fun. And, that's part of his personality. And it wasn't, as long as it's not disruptive to the class and as long as it's not disrupting learning, if somebody wants to play a trick or have a joke, I think it's absolutely fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. I think that was very, very interestingly put across. We will move on with the next question because we're absolutely behind schedule. Although Kuntal sir, if you could just quickly give us maybe a short comment on this, because we don't want to not hear from you also.
Okay, thank you so very much, Srishti. Yeah, I do agree, and at the same time, managing the time of the class is very important. As Priscilla ma'am has already said, that a 40 minutes class should be very judiciously divided. If a teacher keeps on speaking for 40 minutes, definitely the students will get bored. So ideally, the teacher should not speak more than 12 minutes. Let the students also get involved into it. Okay, so for example, I was doing that particular poem, particular chapter, that Happy Prince. So why not take the Happy Prince? I told them it was an online class going on last year during. So I told them that you have to do the class for yourself. I've selected some of the students. So you think that some of you, the Happy Prince and the Sparrow, had come to Ayodhya. Okay, and there's a tussle going on between the temple and the holy shrine of the Muslims, also the mosque and all. So now both are unhappy because there's going to be a lot of pollution. There will be a lot of chances of going to be a communal disharmony. So you show the authority of Ayodhya to the court. So we'll have a court session. So everybody was glued to that, and I took a backdrop. They did the chapter, and it was amazing. So this is how we need to plan out some of the techniques to keep the students involved, and of course we need to empathize with the students. When a student is after all a human being, when he doesn't feel interested, we cannot blame him. The blame goes to us. If I point one finger, three fingers points towards me. That's most important.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that wonderful response. We'll move ahead with our final comment from the student and also the final question before we almost finish the session. Usually, we feel what is taught in is English and what is tested in the exam is Greek. So in class, we seem to understand everything, but in exams, don't seem to know anything. Now, this was something which is a common complaint across students because they feel that in class it seems all wonderful. We've enjoyed the sessions. It was so innovative. It was great, and the concept was so well put across to us. But why is it that we get stuck in the details? We're not able to understand the nitty-gritties of stuff and reproduce it just as we're expected to when we're tested, or understand the applicational angles about the various aspects of the same. Priscilla, ma'am, we would love to hear what is it that you would want to say to this.
Going back, Srishti, to this question, I think again it's the exam and it's the fear. See, the thing is, all students have a fear of not performing and not getting those results. So I agree with Miss Jennifer when she said it's the well-being. So when we cater to the needs of fear, this thing of blacking out in the exam wouldn't be a big issue. So what happens in the class, why is that they're okay in the class? Because there's no fear, there's no somebody assessing them, they're not assessed, they're not looked at, they're not judged. So what happens is, so in the class learning is happening. So the moment they are given confinement towards an exam, the fear is built. So I think the well-being of a student in terms of how to overcome fear should be addressed, and then there's no blackout, because then they know for sure that they've learned something in the classroom, they're taking that exactly to an exam room. So the blackout is happening because of the fear, not because of anything else. So the well-being has to be built. So holistic education, and I think Jennifer's rightly put in saying the well-being of a child is very much at most important. I think so. Yeah, that's the cause. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you very much. This is very important to look into, and we tend to ignore it most of the times. I think Rushik sir has not been, so he was not been able to contribute previously, but it's very important for us to hear what he had to contribute. So he's added that he said that he would like to say that analytical subjects like math and science are a struggle because of the way it has been taught to the students. We need to add more and more activity based teaching, competency based teaching, which is so true, which is very wonderfully put, that competency based teaching and activity based teaching. And he's given a wonderful example of this at the beginning of this session, which everyone watching this session later on and may have missed could rewind and take a look at, because it's very interesting to see how he brings in moral values with maths, and that's how math becomes so much more relatable and memorable more than anything else. Moving on to my most exciting question, which is that of what is the coolest compliment that you have received as a teacher? I know you all have received some tons of compliments because you all are worthy of many wonderful compliments. I'm going to end this session on this high, so very quickly I would want all of you to respond to it one by one. So let's start with Priscilla, ma'am.
Well, we are given the IB attributes. Every teacher is assigned an IB attribute. So
Mm-hmm.
the most coolest comment first of all, the word cool refers to me. It has been my middle name all through. The most coolest teacher is Miss Priscilla. So the coolest word
Oh,
itself was one of the comment. The second, I would say, I was addressed as the most risk taker in the school, because, that was one of the things that, I would put a smile when they say, hey, that's the greatest risk taker. She's one teacher who takes a lot of risk. So I've been given those kind of comments. That was really different.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Purnima ma'am?
I think I liked it most when my student said, "You are such a badass teacher, man." I think that is one compliment that I will remember. And they meant it genuinely, like very appreciatively. When they use language that they use for each other, I think it indicates how much intimacy they feel towards us. And so I think it is one of the best compliments I've received ever.
Ma'am, I think kudos to you for taking it so sportingly, and it is a wonderful word to be, to receive in the current age and generation, because that is one of the highest compliments that the Urban Dictionary puts out. That's what the language has come up to be. But kudos to you for coming, so wonderful and so colorful. I think this is just so wonderful to hear, and I'm just so amused with the compliment and your response to the same. Rushik sir has had to add that best teachers with best comprehensive technique teaching methodologies was one of the coolest compliments that he's received. Well, we couldn't agree more, because we had a great time just hearing the methodologies. We're wondering how it's going to be when it all comes together. Kuntal sir, let's hear your the compliment that you have received. The coolest one. I'm sure it's going to be a hard pick, but please do try.
Well, I'll say that there's something which was very close to my heart. A few days back, maybe a few years back, I received on a Teacher's Day a message from one of my students of Easter years, Huda Azizul Qadar. And she wrote that, "Sir, I read namaz 5 times a day, but before every prayer, it's you who come. Nothing more I could have received." Okay. And then while I was in Vidyadevi Jindal School on a Teacher's Day, since I'm into soccer also, so I was given a title in the auditorium, "The Curious Conflict of Shakespeare and Maradona." Okay, that was really that took me off. And the day I was leaving with the Vijindal school, the entire class 12, the 5 sections, the girls literally stopped my car at the main gate, trying to, like, pleading my wife to convince me not to leave. And they were telling that, "Sir, we are lost without you." And that also in front of my wife, they're telling that we are lost without you.
Wow,
Perhaps
that
this,
is. There are some really, really wonderful, cool comments. I am in such cool company. I think I will have to change the notion of, that being in erudite company is not what I can use. This is absolutely cool and extremely wonderful company. Priscilla, ma'am, can't wait to hear what is the coolest compliment you've received.
I thought I already
Sorry,
shared.
sorry, sorry, my bad. Jennifer, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm the last one left. So quite recently, actually, I had a student get in touch with me who I taught several years ago at Stonehill. And at the time, with that particular graduating class, I read the Dr. Seuss, "Oh, the Places You'll Go" story to that class. And she got in touch with me a few months back and said that at the time she felt like she was the only student that didn't know what she was doing or where she was going. She hadn't got a place at university and she was feeling quite lost. And she said that me reading that story had resonated so much with her and had meant so much to her. And that she was now finally in a place where she'd found herself. She was studying fine art. She'd finally, found her path and knew what she wanted to do. But to remind her of the story and my reading it, she had recently got herself a tattoo of a hot air balloon, because the image on the front of the book is a hot air balloon to show the kind of traveling of the places you will go. So she'd recently got herself a tattoo of a hot air balloon to remind herself that sometimes it's okay if you don't know where you're going in life and that you will find your way in the end.
Wow, that is just so wonderfully put. Thank you so much. To all of you, I think we've received some wonderful comments for this session. We're hoping to make this session more available and accessible to people once it's been compiled. We will, of course, make very sure that all the details are put in the description box for everybody who's watching. Thank you so much for joining us today in this session. Feel free to access more links like this and a compiled version of this particular session on our Reading Right channel, along with the various school media portals. You can access it on your social media accounts as well, and our social media handles of readingright.in, both on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Thank you so much to all the wonderful teachers present today with us. I am
Thank
just
you.
so extremely grateful for being so supportive and so forthcoming with all your answers, and being such an extreme delight and an extreme sport for making our Sunday wonderful. We have exceeded time leaps and bounds, but I think you will forgive me for all the, for the amount of knowledge that I've been able to extract from this, for all for the benefit of all the community and everyone else who's going to be watching this today and after. So thank you so much. I think no matter how much we reiterate it, it's not going to be enough.
Thank
Um,
you.
to mention to all the students, if you know any of these teachers on the panel, we will be sharing with them a special code which they can share with unlimited number of students, teachers, and their friends and family. That code is going to help you get a set of free credits to be able to access smarticles, whereat you can understand news articles with immense simplicity on our app, launching tomorrow on Play Store, and in a week the App Store. You can already go on the Reading Right website and waitlist yourself. Along with that, you can go right away onto web.readingright.in and start reading those articles without having to wait for the app. But of course, app comes with its own benefits and precautions. So we'd love for you to download the same tomorrow, going on to Play Store, and make very sure that you log into the account and use the special code being offered to any of these teachers, for which you will have to go up to these teachers and make very sure that you give them another extremely cool compliment. So, in return for which you get that code, and you can go ahead and read those wonderful articles and get more closer to the real world, more educated, more informed, and not more fixated with just the concepts of what your classroom is all about. Because this is what they hope for you and want for you, and hope that this is something that they could also be a part of the endeavor for. Rushik sir, I would love to hear what you have to add, but
Am I am
yeah,
I still audible?
yes, you're audible.
Thankfully, thankfully. Yes, I am actually sharing this in front of the audience that this is my first online webinar, and I'm so high. I mean, that much highly obliged to Reading Right for giving such a wonderful opportunity to get this platform to share our thoughts. Because at times it has happened, ma'am, that being educator we get many things to share with, but there is no much of the audience, or the correct audience, rightly I will say that the correct audience can understand our emotions, feelings, everything. So this is the platform which has given me breakthrough, and I'm so thankful to you, the Reading Right, and you, and hopefully in future also we will have some such wonderful interesting programs which which we can take part in. So expecting a lot from Reading Rights. Thank you so much, and thanks to the wonderful panelists apart from me, and thanks to the wonderful audience also who has taken out time and uh, constantly been with us to listen to each and every one of us. Seriously, I have learned a lot in this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words of encouragement and for your wonderful words of including us in this Sunday of yours being brighter. So thank you so much yet again. On that note, I'm going to end this broadcast. For all of you watching, as I said, come back again to the YouTube channel to get a compiled version of this video. Thank you yet again for joining us. We're signing off. Bye bye.
Thank you.